Now, Irish hurdler Sarah Lavin is with us on the line. If you missed it at the weekend, she came 7th in the final of the 60-metre hurdles at the World Indoor Championships in Belgrade. In the semi-final, though, she broke the 8-second mark. So not a bad weekend's work. Sarah, good morning to you.
Good morning, guys. Thanks for having me.
You must be pretty delighted with that.
Yeah, this time last week, that was the aim. I guess I went in with an 8:06 PB and I'd equaled it in Paris. So it was the best form I ever brought into a championship. So I was hoping, obviously to go that one step further. Obviously, really, really wanted to break that 8 seconds. It's just like a marker of world class hurdling, and I think to verbalize that maybe 10 days ago and then to go do it, that was really, really special, because sometimes it doesn't happen like that. And the way it happened, I guess, to run a PB at 9 o'clock in the morning in the heats, and then to go quicker again in the afternoon. Sometimes you could, if it had happened the other way around, I wouldn't have made a world final. So I'm just so grateful for the way things played out, and yeah, really, really delighted.
There's a lot of things there that I wanted to ask you about. The first thing there, when you talk about verbalizing it and then actually doing it, is that something that you do before pretty much every big meet, that you say what you want to achieve, and does it tend to work?
No, I'd definitely be afraid. I think, obviously I tend to keep it to myself. You always have goals, I suppose, like anyone in any avenue of life. You have targets and goals that you want to meet. The way things happened, actually, there was the Permanent TSB were launched as the new title sponsor for the Olympic team. So there was a press conference and stuff a week out, which is not really what an athlete loves to do before they head off to a world championships, is talk to a heap of journalists. But it's just the way it happened. And thankfully, it happened. It all came through. And it wouldn't be typically something. Obviously, you keep it to yourself. You have targets, but you definitely wouldn't like to be climbing trees and shouting.
Yeah, it's a very Irish thing to play yourself down for fear that actually what you say you might do actually doesn't come true.
And I don't even know, is it playing yourself down? It's just, we're a funny old nation. You know what I mean? You don't want anyone to get ahead of yourself. And I don't know. I think. I think it's in our nature, I guess. You're right. But it's not even a playing yourself down. It's just more you don't want to get notions or whatever.
Yeah, that's terrible. And if you're chatting to other athletes from other countries, are they happy to exist in a world of notions and this sort of carefree mindset?
It's really interesting, and particularly certain nations are far more confident than others, and it probably does come back to a confidence thing that's happened, I suppose, throughout the years. But yeah, there's definitely a lot of different mindsets. European hurdlers are great to share, but there's carnage in the warm-up always. There's limited amount of hurdles, particularly say for the heats, because there's 48 athletes qualified and for the Worlds, and then there's a certain amount of heats. Everyone's warming up, everyone wants to do their drills and stuff. So you've got coaches there having their coats over the hurdles, protecting it, and the athletes mightn't even want to use it. I see multiplications. And the European hurdlers generally tend to rally together. And I have a good friend, Liz Clay from Australia. So we were, we'd share hurdles or whatever. But yeah, there's a lot of antics, of course, in a warm-up area.
Right. So at the weekend, for example, would you have to get there extra early just to make sure that you have a couple of hurdles to practice with?
Even if you're there 3 hours early, someone's there before with their coat wrapped. And my coach is great, but it's definitely why you need a coach as well. At the end of the day, sometimes it's not even obviously she's giving really, really good technical feedback on the starts, but sometimes it's actually just someone to fight your corner, and you'd swear some of these people brought the hurdles from the US or Bahamas or overseas on the plane, and they weren't going to share, or Jamaica, so it's kind of funny, but it's all just part of championship, and it's entertaining, I guess, if you just can't take it to get too uptight about it.
You mentioned your coach there. Noel Morrissey is your coach, and you mentioned her in your post-race interview with David Gillick at the weekend about how she puts you through your paces to the point where racing multiple times in a day is not a problem for you. So how tough are we talking here? What is the process like working with Noel? Because you've known her for quite some time.
Yeah, she's coached me since I was 7, which is really, really mad, you know. And I'm 27 now, so she knows way too much about me.
Wow.
And I know way too much about her. But no, it's really special relationship, I guess we have. But yeah, it's tough. I'm going to be very careful here because I'm heading into outdoor training. I only have a week off, and I don't want to get absolutely butchered next week. But yeah, like she, you know, it's no different. I guess like a lot of it, when you get to the World Championships, there's very little difference between what every girl is doing, you know, training wise. But it's more, a lot comes down to mindset, and it's on, you know, in that moment, like there is very, very little. And I think I was very fortunate to get exposed to before Christmas, and like so many of the girls are just really nice. So and linking in with other groups in other countries really brings you on to the next level. But there is very, very little difference to what any training we're doing, and it's more so like in the moment, you know what I mean? I mean, like everyone trains hard if you're in a high performance sport, you know, there's no but I think why the final was my slowest round, I think it was just very high adrenaline to run 7:97 at that time. It was exhausting an hour and a half later. And you know, I think also Kambunji, Sedney and I were basically the European hurdlers raced each other. You know what I mean? So it really has to be so internal, because you're literally talking about the smallest of margins. And when poor Kambunji hit a hurdle, it's an external stimulus, I guess. So everything, it's that moment of, oh, even though it didn't actually affect you, but it is still an external stimulus that kind of can bring you out. I know it sounds so deep.
No, it's true. Because I was going to ask that, Sarah, because like, I mean, for anybody who didn't see the race, it's a pretty it's a pretty extraordinary fall. Like, I mean, she just clips the hurdle. It's right to your right hand side, and she goes down straight in her face. Like, I mean, I presume you can't not see that. It can't not put you off. So
and it's not even a see, it's more like a feel, if you get what I mean. Like, and everything you're doing is a feeling, to be honest, at that level, you know. And it's a moment. It's gone, and there's nothing you can do. But at the same time, that's championship racing, and you have to do better, and not let that. You have to be deeper within yourself to not let that bring you out, if that makes sense. So it's on me, you know what I mean. And thankfully, I don't think she was too badly injured or anything like that. But yeah, like if you had said to me last week that I was lining up, like it was just such a spectacle, like the lights, the show. I'm not sure if you saw it, but you know, it was to be lining up in a world final, a global final. I thought I could do it someday, of course, but I didn't know it was going to happen at the weekend. And it's not that my reaction was just so pure, but at the same time, I don't know, will I ever feel like that again going into it, which is mad, you know what I mean? That I'll never feel like that going again into making a final, I guess, you know. Probably will if I ever win a medal, I don't know. But yeah, I think like if I had seen everything that had happened happen, and there was girls outside of the final that, you know, I rate so highly. There was a Swiss girl, Zabarin, and Liz from Australia. Like I rate them just so highly, and you know, it was just, sometimes it's awful to say, but it's the roll of a dice, and who's in that exact moment in that semi, like has the, you know, there's so little between us all. That yeah, it was just a really, really special day and a special weekend, and yeah.
The psychology of the event is fascinating, and I wonder at times if it's frustrating just having to accept that there is a little bit of a roll of the dice involved, because I saw you speaking after your heat in Tokyo saying that you didn't have a thoughtless race, which was a really interesting phrase to use, that it needed to be autopilot, I assume, in order to get the best out of yourself, and maybe that didn't happen at the Olympic Games last year. So how do you try and come to terms with the fact that you need to be in a thoughtless space of mind, and there is not much that you can do to control that sometimes?
You have to really practice it, you know what I mean? Right. And that comes to every rep in training, and that's every time you're hurting on the track, you know, especially like speed endurance. It's so much fun indoors because it's 60 meters, but like November, December, like you're lying on the ground thinking, oh my gosh, dying would be easier here right now, because your body's just in pain, you know, you're just riddled with lactic or whatever. But, yeah, I think like heading into outdoor, like you have to, in those moments, just blank your brain. And I know that sounds bizarre to to the average person, but you can perceive the pain, you know what I mean? You just have to keep moving. And yeah, I think getting into those like mindsets in training then transfers into a race where you have to just be within yourself. And I think it's really, really hard to describe, and you can read all the sports like books and they talk about this flow state or whatever, but it's just like not thinking, you know what I mean? I think we're really good at it as kids, but as we get older, the world teaches us to think, you know, through education, through whatever. And you almost want to do the opposite when you're in the moment of high performance sport. I don't know. So yeah, it's practice. Yeah, I think. But I think looking back on Tokyo also, you know, it's in Japan. Firstly, racing loads really, really suits me. Thankfully, because I love to race, but you're heading out to a holding camp that's 3.5 weeks. I also had back issues, hamstring issues that I really extended my limits to qualify for the games. You know, you have to bear in mind I was 57th last January in the world, and I was trying to be top 40 to qualify. So June was a really last, you know, my body was really, really pushed to its limits, and we had to go. I either had to keep going and potentially run out of steam for Tokyo, or to go back into training for 2 weeks. And we had I had really been on my last legs before I ran that 12:95 in Madrid last June. So we had to do something. Like, it was really one of those things that we can talk about. I should have raced closer, but it just wasn't possible, you know. So going out in Tokyo, like running the 13, I was just like, I love a championship. I love bringing my best to the biggest stage. And I think Derval probably taught me how important that was, you know what I mean? Subconsciously even, that's really all that matters. And to not put out my best performance in Tokyo really, really hurt me. Like, right. It wasn't my lock screen, but you know, the home button, you know, the one that's inside your phone. Like I had, like it still is. Like that was me. There was one girl, I finished 7th in my heat. There was a French girl behind me. She was injured, do you know what I mean? So effectively I was just like, what, you know, really, really, what was that? And
motivation by your lock screen.
An absolute insight into my mindset, but like that hurt. I was like, you're looking at that for the foreseeable, like until you close that gap. And to look at those girls, I think there's only one girl I haven't beaten since that finished ahead of me in some race.
Right, so you know, if you beat her, then you're changing your home screen.
Well, she's the world record holder, so that would be someday, wouldn't it?
That's a very Irish thing as well. I'm going to put up like something that really annoys me on my lock screen, like, you know.
Yeah, and yeah, because you know, you have to think of the biggest state. You have to just, we're a small country and a small pond, and it's such a big stage. Like the standard is so high, and I think athletics just isn't a massive sport in this country. So people lose the concept. And also I don't think on TV people realize how fast people are going, you know, like as in I look at 800 like, or every rate, and you're literally just like, your jaw is dropped when it's right in front of you, and for some reason the TV screen never seems to back. And I'd be the first to say that, because I remember being 7 watching the Olympics, 7:10, thinking like, I think I can run that fast. So it's not until you're actually there and you see the standard across, you know, like warming up for that final. The only 2 finals that were on that night were the 60-meter men's and the women's hurdles. And so there was 16 athletes, 8 women and 8 men warming up. And there's just loads of coaches out, like, and people, staff just videoing people warming up, because it's so, like, even after the world stage, these are all world-class coaches. They are still mesmerized by watching these guys coming out of the blocks, because technically they're just so good, you know. And it really is such a high standard. And I'd love I suppose, athletics become more accessible in this. It is so accessible in this country, but I think the concept of the level is sometimes lost. And that's, I'm not even talking about me, do you know, that kind of way. But I really, it is amazing to watch some of these athletes. Yeah.
That's like, so that sort of idea of the Olympic Games then, and I guess the way that you look at it is a very interesting one, I suspect, because you've obviously spoken about maybe keeping that moment on your home screen at for the foreseeable future. At the same time, though, there is a break to the Olympics because of COVID, obviously, in 2020, which I guess puts you in a better position to compete. And then again, on the flip side of that, again, is Rio and your bad injuries around that time that stop you from competing. I guess the life of an athlete can very quickly become, at least when you're doing these sort of conversations about the staging post of the Olympic Games, when it's about so much more than that.
It really is, and it's such a journey. And I even look back at 2016 and all those things, and I was just like, you know, I think if I had made this final, I came out of junior career and it was so easy to me, you know what I mean? Like if I had met a world indoor final in 2016, which I was definitely capable of doing, I don't think it would have meant so much, you know what I mean? So I think you just have to trust that, like, everyone's journey is so different, and I will never be another athlete and another athlete will never be me, and you have to take all those moments and trust that this is why things fall the way that it is. Because, you know, I'm sure there was injured athletes watching. I even remember every time I was, you know, every championship that's ever been on from 2016, like this was my first ever world stage apart from World Juniors in 2012. So it was 10 years since I arrived at a World Athletics event, like a championship. And I've watched 10 years of other Irish athletes making championships, and it just hurting, you know, because you're sitting there, you have a niggle, you have a bad injury, or you're just off. What's even worse is when you don't have an injury and you're just in crap shape, you know what I mean? And just watching BBC and crying for other athletes who have done well, and you know, because you're just happy for them, not, you know, that kind of way that you're just like, it's such an emotional thing. And I can't believe I was on the flip side of that, you know. And if I had known in that moment, and I'm sure there was injured athletes watching, or people who had just missed off, or people who just had a hard year and see things just didn't line up on time, and if I had known at that moment watching it that it will all turn out okay, I just think, like, just hold the faith.
I presume when you're watching those other Irish athletes over those 10 years, like, you're feeling happy for them, but you're also gutted as well. Like, I mean, it wouldn't be human nature otherwise, right?
Well, I would never. No, I'm very, very happy for everyone, and, like, you know, I would never be kind of bitter in any way.
Sure,
Jeez,
but
that would not an emotion.
You'd be looking at it through your own perspective, I guess, is my point.
Yeah. Well, yeah, you just would be like, I would do anything to be there, to be standing right now. And I suppose even my initial reaction after the final, I was quite I kind of was a little bit deflated compared to what I was, say, like 2 hours before that, or an hour and a half before that. But and it's like, by another 12 hours later, I was like, you have so much to be grateful for. If you'd known last week that you were going to make a world final, break 8 seconds, where you were 3 years ago, where you were 2 years ago, where you were a year ago, if you'd known all of those things, like, you would have just been like, and it's just gratitude. You have to remain just so grateful for everything you have. The sport is like, you always want more. If you win, you want a world record. If you get the world record, you've made some technical mistake that you want to fix to make it harder for the next, you know. So everyone leaves a little bit like wanting more, no matter where you finish. And it's just to hold where you were a month ago, 12 months ago, 2 years ago, and just keep that in perspective, I think is so important. Yeah.
Which I guess is just a perfect note to finish on then. When you think about wanting more from this starting point now, is it all about Oregon this year? Is that what you've got your sights set on, or are there other goals in the interim?
Definitely Oregon, like a world champ, is going to be so special. Like, Eugene is track town like USA, and like they literally call it that. And then Munich, the European Championships are also. So again, I'm lucky, you know, the way the calendar has fallen and how things were delayed and pushed out. The fact that we've a World Championships this year and a Europeans, and then next year indoors comes back to European indoors, and there's another World Championships in Budapest in 2023, and then we're into Paris, and all these competitions lead into each other, I suppose, for world rankings and opportunities to run fast, you know, because it's so difficult to qualify for an Olympics. People assume, you know, obviously I want to get to Paris, and my goal is to have a better Olympics finish and all that, but it's so difficult to get to the Olympics, you know what I mean? And you can't take that for granted either. So it's making sure you tick all these little boxes along the way and just keep progressing. Yeah.
Well, listen, Sarah, congratulations on a hell of a day on Saturday, and best of luck over the next little while. Thanks a million for taking the call.
Thank you.